Hey everybody, welcome back to Fireside Chats with Connected Camping. My name is Chari Caston and I am the HR resource person and mental health specialist here on the team. And we are here with Ebonee. I'm so excited to have you. But before we jump in, I kind of want to let everybody know what exactly is Fireside Chats. So this is an opportunity for us to learn about people in the community who are doing great things. Could be a creator, could be someone who attended camp. It's just somebody who basically wants to share their story. So, Ebonee,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yes, my name is Ebonee Davis. I'm a multifaceted creative. I work at the intersection of art and spirituality. So much of what I create centers around liberation of our bloodlines, of our lineages, of ourselves in this lifetime. I'm a storyteller, and all of the stories that I tell just center around this idea of self-empowerment, self-awakening, and coming fully online in this lifetime so that we can truly co-create the realities that we want to exist in.
I love that.
Yes.
A lot of being a creative, we hold so much mentally.
Yes.
And I love that you're able to articulate what you do and articulate the things that you've accomplished. But what is some things that people are not seeing when it comes to your mental health?
I think so art is the alchemical process for me. It's like moving from one state of being to another. And so in the process of making my art, someone might experience it as a finished product. They might experience it as something that they can relate to and appreciate, but they might not necessarily realize that this is coming from a very real place inside of myself. I would probably say 99% of the time. You know, a lot of these stories that I tell are based in my actual lived reality. And I'm telling them from a place of wisdom, having like moved through them and maybe still moving through them. And so I think what people might not realize is that this isn't make-believe. It's not fiction. Even down to like the fantastical elements, you know, in my experience, the heroic elements, like they're so real. And I think people can categorize them as fictional or categorize them as fantasy when I know myself to be a superhero and to have powers, you know, and I know the people around me to be superheroes who have powers. And so just drawing on all of that lived experience.
Yeah. Connected Camping curates a space for creatives. And that can be influencer, that can be a painter, that can be a content creator. But I love the fact that you pointed out that your art represents who you are as a person. And there is a difference between a content creator, to me, and an artist.
Yes.
There's a huge difference between those two.
Yeah.
What is it like for you when you are thinking about the world that you were in? I believe you started before social media was like super big, and now kind of having to marry your art with content and influencing. What does that all mean to you if you break it down into like little layers?
Yeah, I would say that like if art is like the meal, then the content is like the appetizer. It might be the thing that introduces people to the art. The vehicle that gets people interested in the art, because typically in order to experience the fullness of the art, you have to journey off of the platforms that we're given, such as Instagram, such as TikTok. You might be able to experience the fullness of someone's art on YouTube just because it's more of a platform that's geared toward long form content. Right. But typically you're having to get somebody from those short form content platforms to experience the fullness of what it is that you have to offer. And so maybe by incentivizing them, like, oh, this little snack tastes kind of good, I wonder what the whole meal is gonna give, you know? And so I think I'm just recognizing that it's important for me to differentiate the two.
Yes.
You know, and to still make sure that I am feeding my art just as much as I'm feeding the content, if not more, you know, and letting the content be the thing, the vehicle that's just moving people toward the art instead of the only thing that I'm giving my attention to. Because that's, it's, for me, the art is where the legacy lives. The content is the immediacy and the art is the legacy.
Yeah, I feel that because for me, I've always considered myself like not a creative, But when I had the opportunity to create content, I gravitated more towards content creating because it is an open and shut kind of thing. Like you go on the app, you open and you shut it, right? And it's part of my life, but it's not like my true lifestyle. So my husband is an artist and I watch him operate through the layers of creating music, creating art, and trying to filter through creating content as well. But one of the beautiful things I love about Connected Camping is the opportunity to have all of us in one space, right? Content creators, influencers, everybody just coming together because they love the reaction maybe of other people. They love the reaction of showing what they've created. But we're not creating anything in that space, but we're just being ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can feel overwhelming for others. And leaving an experience, maybe when you hop on your Instagram app or your social media, sometimes you leave those experiences feeling depleted, or your art wasn't worthy, or your content wasn't worthy. How are you refilling yourself back up if you have those moments?
Yeah, I think it's leaning toward my art. And I also want to emphasize, like, there is no hierarchy. And I think it's important to recognize, too, that content has given us the ability globally to share ourselves and share our art in ways that we've never had access to before, just due to gatekeeping or politics. You know, people who have access, people who don't have access, opportunity, funding, right? These were all barriers to entry that so many artists were facing before that are now completely decimated because we have content creation. We can be our own publicists. We can be our own managers. We can be our own PR. And so, like, I'm so grateful for these platforms, and I want to emphasize that too. But also, I think, like, leaning into my art in moments where I'm like, maybe the content didn't perform well. To me, it's like, that's just the snack anyway. Like, I am so focused on making a nutritious meal that if that's not the thing that satiates the appetites of my audience in that moment, then that's okay. Like, my fulfillment comes from waking up every morning, going into my meditation and doing my routines that center around pouring into the greater things that I'm creating. And look, these things might not even be seen by other people for decades. You know, I'm writing books. I'm doing things that take time. There's no immediate gratification for that. But I know that I'm doing it. And as long as I know that I am practicing the daily discipline of pouring into those things, then whether the content performs well or not, I know that I am doing my job and I can feel fulfilled within myself knowing that.
Yeah. Routines are the root of a lot of who we are as people.
Yeah.
And sometimes people think that they just have to have a positive mindset,
Yeah.
right? They think that they have to just have positive thinking and just be around good people.
Yeah.
But the reality is, like you mentioned, it's the root.
Yes.
It's the routine. It's the things that people aren't seeing. And it's the things that you're doing that doesn't require a clap or a like or a reshare.
Exactly.
It could. Some people share that with others. And I do think sometimes the heart of people sharing that is so others can experience that joy. But I do want to remind those who are listening, do the routine for yourself.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Wash your face for yourself.
For yourself. Yes.
You know, breathe for yourself.
Exactly.
Meditate for yourself. Write for yourself.
Yes.
And don't have the pressures of feeling like somebody's going to see this.
Right.
Because they won't. They may not. And if you decide, they don't have to.
Yeah. And I think we've just, like, generally made everything so reward based or so validation based that we don't necessarily do things for ourselves the way that we could, the way that we should. You know, like getting up and meditating every morning. There's nobody, when the bell goes off after an hour of sitting still in silence, there's nobody cheering for me. There's no pom-poms. You know, there's no fireworks. I just know what I've done for myself, and that's enough for me. And like you said, I think it's so important to remember, like, I don't wake up every day feeling great. There are days where I'm, like, trying to constantly bring my awareness back to the present moment because it's being pulled by thoughts of yesterday, you know, regrets of the past or anxieties of the future. And that's why I love meditation. But that's to say, like, the habits and the routines are so important because you can't rely on just thinking that you're going to just have a positive attitude all the time. But if you have the tools in place and the structures in place on a daily basis, you know that there's a certain level that you're not going to fall underneath.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to crash out.
Your foundation is
Because my
set.
foundation is set.
And honestly, we've been, those who've been to public schools, and we've been institutionalized to have some sort of pattern throughout the day, whether it's the school system, your job, we're humans, and we need those boundaries.
Right.
And a lot of times when people think of boundaries, they think about someone disrespecting them. But a boundary is really the opportunity of, what are you going to do when things go wrong? What are you setting in place when someone yell at you? If your boundary is, say hypothetically, you tell me, Chari, I don't like when people yell at me or talk about my post or talk about my art. Your boundary is not that. Your boundary is, if people are talking about it, what you gonna do? What you setting in place?
I love that.
That's a boundary.
That's a dope reframe.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm thinking about creativity and mental health, reframing is the key. Right?
Yeah.
So how are you having the adrenaline or the energy or the mental capacity? I know that smoke is blowing in your face right
girl.
now, and she is powering through. Because baby, I was holding my cough like, ooh, because I don't want people to think I had COVID. But
all right, we back.
How are you powering through holding that? It seems as though you're holding a lot of momentum and pushing through life's hard passes or life's hard obstacles that has been given to you. What are you doing? I know you mentioned routines.
Yes.
I know you mentioned support systems.
Yes.
If somebody's listening out there and they feel like, well, Ebonee, I don't got that. What can I do?
Man, I think there's things that we all have access to, like tools, free tools, you know, because I think there's also this like perception around wellness that it's like this elitist, inaccessible thing and that it costs a lot of money. And like when people say that, I'm like, it's frustrating because, you know, I come from a background of not having a lot of money, you know, my family not having a lot of money, not having a lot of access. And there are free tools out there that can help us to improve the quality of our being, which therefore improves the quality of our life. And I think saying that these things are inaccessible is just a cop-out so that people can continue to perpetuate the same realities that they've always known, because whether it's healthy or not, there is a level of comfort and there's a level of safety in familiarity. Yeah. You know? And so I think for me, the momentum just comes from my focus. And that focus is on my self-improvement and self-evolution. You know, I think that being the primary thing, like I'm not driven by the metrics. I'm not driven by the validation. I'm not driven by whatever external thing. I'm driven by how am I showing up in this moment and constantly evaluating. Like I spend a lot of time just like looking at myself, asking myself tough questions and like pivoting when necessary and evolving when necessary and shedding. And like I'm a Scorpio, so I'm always in this like change and die and rebirth thing. Like it's just in my nature, you know? But I think in that I'm able to show up because I'm just sharing the truth of this constant evolution that I'm observing through my own reality. And then, like I said earlier, that's informing the art and the creativity and everything that I'm sharing with the world.
You share something very unique that I think, so I'm a therapist, guys. I'm a therapist. And you share something very unique that I think a lot of people are afraid of accepting, which is self.
Yeah.
So you said, I ask myself a lot of hard questions.
Yes.
I shed.
Yes.
I sit still. I challenge myself.
Yes.
I don't allow my past to define my future.
Yes.
And honestly, the people that I've been working with, a lot of times it is those creators who are having the hardest times with their mental health.
Yeah.
They're having the hardest times sitting with themselves, even though they can create beautiful music and they can express how they feel very beautifully to others.
Right.
But when it comes to honest truth with self, they're having a hard time.
Yeah.
You also mentioned there's free things out there, free applications. What are some of those free tools that you have access to?
Yeah. There's like a million meditation videos on YouTube,
Yes.
breathwork videos, yoga videos, like whatever you're into. But I think one of the most beneficial things for me has been going to Vipassana. I sat my first Vipassana course last year. And for those who don't know, Vipassana is a 10-day silent meditation course, meditation for 10 plus hours every day, waking up at 4 a.m., going to bed usually around 9 or 10. But in that time in between, you're just meditating. And in that stillness, you get the opportunity to see what your subconscious is really doing, because that's what's really moving you. The things that you are conscious of, the things that you have your awareness on are just a small fraction of what's actually moving you throughout your day. It's the subconscious thoughts. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I hate this. I love this. I prefer this. I disdain this. Those are the things, the subtle, quiet voices in the back of your mind that are actually determining how you perceive and experience and co-create your reality. And so by being still, you give the opportunity for all of those debris to come up and to examine them and to decide, like, is this a thought that I actually agree with? Whoa, I didn't even know my mind was like saying this. You know, there was one thing that came up for me that was like, I'm killing it. It was like this voice that was in the back of my head that came up when I was sitting in Vipassana that was like, I'm killing it. I'm killing it. And like, you know, there was like this subtle hope that I would be like noticed in that. And I recognized that that was like, putting me in like subtle competition with everyone around me, because everyone has their eyes closed. What do you mean you're killing it? You're doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if this is happening in my like regular life, then I'm subtly like evaluating the world and seeing where I fit into it and assessing my value based on, am I killing it, or am I like, you know,
Right.
Everything about how I see myself is now through the lens of, am I killing it? And if I'm not, how much do I have to do to prove that I am?
Yes.
You know? And so just giving me the opportunity to like come to terms with that, giving me the opportunity to come to terms with like external validation and how much that meant to me, you know, and being able to like release that and just reframe my values. Like, if by doing the action, that is enough validation. You know, there's nothing that needs to happen outside of me. There's no one who needs to notice me. The action is enough for me to be confident in myself. So that's just an example of, you know, the sort of subconscious thinking that can come up that you really get an opportunity to reconcile. So, and Vipassana is completely free.
And I love that, because Connected Camping also provides that experience for one day.
Yes.
You have the opportunity to be silent in Connected Camping.
Yes.
And the things that you're mentioning is very aligned to mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to a podcast on the way here, and they mentioned that mindset, if you think about the definition of mindset is the settings of your mind.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's like obvious, but it's like, oh, the settings, the machinery, right? The settings.
Exactly.
Yes.
The settings of your mind. And who are we to think that we don't need to get rewired? So you know how our iPhone be updating?
Yes.
In your sleep?
Yes.
It needs to update.
Yes.
It needs to update. We're
Yes.
software. We need to
Yes.
update. And you know, it's not as simple as clicking a button and clicking accept, but it is recognizing that you need to accept it. What you've been through your childhood,
Yes.
you can have a mindset shift. You
Yes.
need new settings, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Your iPhone from 1991 is not the same
Right.
in 2026.
Right.
You require an update. You require different apps.
Yes.
The app that was given in 1991 is not the same.
It's not relevant.
It's not.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes people feel like they have to do it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I hear you say sit in silence, that to me, for a lot of people, could be like step 100. Sitting with silence with themselves, if they've always been in chaos,
Right.
feels impossible.
Yes.
If you've always been in the house of 10 people,
Right.
if you've always been abused,
Mm-hmm.
if you've always gone to school hungry,
Mm-hmm.
if you've always felt like nobody loves you,
Yes.
why would I want to sit by myself?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you got to go back to those settings of the brain and say, am I willing to accept the change?
Right.
Am I willing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think like you said, you know, connected camping can be such a beautiful bridge or catalyst, right? Because you have group morning meditation. And so that might be an entry point into someone's first meditation experience, you know, maybe having gone through some of those adversities, right? And it's like, okay, I can do this in a group. My toe is dipped into the water. Maybe I can take this home, and maybe it's not an hour that I sit by myself. Maybe it's just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just 5 minutes with a little bit of ambient music, and then I can work my way to silence, and then I can work my way to a silent 15, 30, an hour. It wasn't always an hour for me. It started out as 30 minutes, you know, but being able to just have the awareness to say, I do need to change. And just taking the baby steps to do so is so powerful. And you'd be surprised how supported like you will be in that once you start to take those steps. The support that comes in to help move you in the direction of evolution and of your greatest expression is so powerful.
It's super powerful. And it reminds me of culturally, we have a hard time when someone is changing. And we say things like, bro, you changed.
Right.
You acting different.
Right.
And it's like, why is that
Yeah.
a bad thing? And I think we are responsible when we allow our kids to say that. Like, I'm a mom as well, and I'm being very cautious of my words because I don't want her to think that because mom is saying it in a slang way or I'm joking, it's gonna live in her body.
Right.
It has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So when people are thinking about change, sometimes specifically in our culture, it can feel like, I don't want to be different. I don't want to change.
Yeah. And I think witnessing somebody else's change is like holding up a mirror, right? If we are on the same level, you know, lifestyle or thought or way of being, if we're on the same level and then I notice you change, then that automatically means that I, A, have a responsibility to change too, and B, you might not be a parallel to me anymore. I might be losing you as a counterpart. So either I have to change, which takes a great responsibility on my part, or I have to witness you ascend out of my life through the changes that you're making. Either way, it's very uncomfortable because it's like when somebody changes, they're revealing the shadows in you that you still haven't looked at. Like you said, the mindset, you know, the parts of your psyche that are keeping you trapped in certain experiences or certain realities or certain habits, certain patterns, certain ways of being. If somebody's willing to look at that within themselves and then shift it, but you're not ready yet, that can be so painful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The responsibility that we have for ourselves will reflect also how other people receive the change.
Yeah.
So if I'm walking into the room knowing that I'm okay with my new attitude, you might be met with some resistance, but at the end of the day, those who are there to support you, will stick.
Yeah.
Those who won't will not.
Yeah.
And I don't really like to say that because that doesn't. It's not true in all situations. However, being vigilant and being aware of what's around you can help you stay connected to yourself.
Yeah. And I also think there's like a way to operate in gratitude too when we do go through changes, right? Like I think through just like the spiritual rhetoric as of like the last few years, I don't know, the social media era, it's all like, I'm cutting you off and like, I'm outgrowing you and like, you have to cut people off or like, and it's just like, man, live in gratitude. Like every single person around you is a catalyst for your growth. And so if it's a relationship that didn't work out or a friendship that didn't work out or a family member, whatever the case may be, it's all happening for your evolution. Right. Don't be so arrogant as to think like you are the chosen one and nobody else around you is helping in that. Even if there was a painful moment that was caused by somebody else outside of you, say thank you. If that's the thing that it took, the spur that it took to get you moving in a new direction, give thanks. You know, it doesn't have to be, like I said, just this arrogant, self-righteous thing.
In my head, I'm thinking of the person who's watching this. My fear is that they may look us up and say, easy said than done for them to.
Right. That's always, yeah.
That's, you know,
Right.
and that's real, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They can perceive what we put out on the internet and say, that's only gonna work for them.
Right.
Those people.
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we have to go back into those simple sayings. This is not sponsored by Nike at all, but I love the just do it. And when you're a kid, you think about the time of like the phrases of things and what people will say it to you, and you're like, it doesn't really mean anything to me. But when you think about something simple as just do it.
Yeah.
Just believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You got this.
Yeah.
That's your responsibility. Don't go to my page, and if you are, give me a follow. Get me paid or something. Don't go to my page to compare yourself. Please.
Right.
Please don't go to my page to compare yourself.
Yeah.
If anything, go to our DMs.
Yeah.
Go on YouTube and type out some free resources.
Mm-hmm.
Get mental health help.
Yeah.
A lot of insurance companies cover therapy. They will not tell you this. It's not going to be in the back of your insurance card. You got to call and find out about how you can get support and help. So as we wrap up here and our fire is dwindling down.
It's wrapping up.
One of the things that we love to say at Connected Camping is way to grow. What are some moments in this past year for you that you felt like, man, way to grow? And I'm not saying that it has to come from you.
Yeah.
But think about maybe people in your life, or if it is yourself, what's the horizon moment for you?
Way to grow. I think for me, the last year, there's been such a big emphasis placed on care. And I would say that's been an area of my life that I've really grown in. I spent so much of my 20s creating this public facing avatar version of myself while I was kind of suffering behind the scenes. I had a strong focus on developing my relationship with God, but my habits and patterns and routines weren't refined in a way that truly allowed me to root myself into my environment and create a strong foundation for myself at home. And so for me, this new horizon has looked like creating a balance between what is public facing and what only I can see. And I think creating that balance has truly allowed me to show up in a more authentic way, publicly, in a more sustainable way. It's so real, it's so real. And not even just burnout, but the anxiety. Yeah, the anxiety and just the depression and the feelings of loneliness that can come from so much emphasis being placed on the external while your inner person is suffering. This will be either 3 or 4 years sober this year. I can't remember. I've been sober for a long time now.
What does that mean?
I'm alcohol free.
Okay, because we got to clarify on the internet.
Yeah, we do, because I am a plant medicine advocate.
Okay.
Like mushrooms and ayahuasca, things of that nature have been such a beautiful catalyst on my journey, but I also think it's so important that we give credit to the integrative pieces, which for me has been meditation, or else you just have a bunch of wild stories from, having this altered state of consciousness, but none of the groundedness and rootedness to actually implement those lessons and live them out and change your life. So, when I say sober, I mean, I've been alcohol free for 4 years, but in my 20s, I had this beautiful career, but I wasn't alcohol free. And so I was doing what one does when they're, drinking. And just, those parallels. So bringing harmony, bringing balance back into my world and doing a lot of work on myself to create that foundation, to create that rootedness. I'm actually working on an album right now.
Awesome.
I don't know if I should drop the album name.
No, I mean,
should she? What you think? Should I drop the album name, y'all?
I mean, it's giving juice. I think if you drop it, you can say it now, and guess what? We can edit it out if you don't feel if you backtrack.
Okay, cool. So the album name is called Root Work. And basically, root work speaks to exactly what we're talking about, that work that has to take place at the foundation in order to create this stability and to sustain everything else that you're putting on top of it. So a lot of the themes of that album are doing that grounding work, that root chakra work to create that foundation and create that stability. So,
and it plays on the way to grow.
Exactly. I was like, dang, I don't know if I should. But yes, exactly. The only way that you can grow is to be rooted, or else it's like a tree can't have all these branches and leaves and flowers and weak roots. It's going to fall over. And I felt myself falling over. Maybe I did fall over, because I relocated from LA to Atlanta and I really had to start my life over. And maybe that was my tree collapsing in that moment because the roots needed to be a little deeper. Right. So,
well, thank you so much for Fireside Chats with Connected Camping. Please follow Ebonee if you want to join her journey. My name is Chari Caston, and definitely join us at the next Connected Camping because you need it much more than you think. See ya.